A story of spiritual renewal. Next. Welcome to the Stan Simpson Show, a program about Connecticut people and compelling issues. Make it a point to drop in every week. More than a decade ago, Michael Daluz served time in prison for shooting a man in self-defense during a bar brawl in New Haven. It was a defining moment in his life, one that brought him to new depths and to new heights. Today, Daluz and his cousin talk about the spiritual journey he went on and how he's using the horrors and mistakes of his life to educate young people. In our second segment, we'll talk about the death of an iconic sports owner known as The Boss and his influence on the Yankees and Major League Baseball. The Current's Don Amore joins us. Then we'll wrap things up with our entertainment attorney, James Walker. We'll chat about Mel Gibson's latest troubles, the legacy of talk show giant Larry King, and a guy named King James. But first, you Gotta Dance, the fascinating story of Michael Daluz here with his cousin, Brian Daluz. Brian wrote the book, You Gotta Dance. Really a story about spiritual renewal. Yeah. It's a complicated story. We have 7 minutes, but basically you're back in the day, 1987. You're in a bar brawl in New Haven with some folks. You're helping somebody out. You shoot someone. It was in self-defense. With your side of the story, you end up going to jail. Mm-hmm. You were, before going to jail, involved with the streets, a little dabbling with drugs. Mm-hmm. So you find yourself in prison. Mm-hmm. You have a prison mate. He ends up trying to kill himself, suicide. Mm-hmm. Walk us from there. You go from there to this renewal. Well, tell us about life in prison and your evolution.
It was just a terrible experience, one experience that I'll never forget for the rest of my life. I actually wrote a diary of all the times that I've been, all the jail cells that I've been in, all the prisons that I've been in, to remind myself of these mistakes so that once I was released, I would not make these same mistakes again. And so I always keep it with me. It's something that I think a lot of people, when they go to prison, they forget that, you know, what the experience was like or what the feeling was like. And for some reason, while I was in there, I could not forget. So, and I still can't forget. And so it's kind of what keeps me on my right path today.
Ended up being a good thing happening for you, right?
Yes.
Sad story, but ended up really changing your life.
Yes, it
Talk
is.
about the spirituality. You're in prison. How does the spiritual journey start?
It began with just seeing the truth about what put me in there. I figured out I was living in a cage, and someone who loves themselves would not really do that to themselves.
Do what?
Put themselves in a cage, lose your freedom, embarrass yourself, embarrass your entire family. It was one of the worst times of my life.
So the things you were doing were what? For folks watching out there, you did what specific things that put you in that cage?
One, I became honest with myself. Carrying guns, selling drugs, using drugs.
Hustling?
Yes, basically. Just being in the streets and not doing the right things, not listening to my parents, and not doing what I wanted to do, what I thought was right.
You had a situation reading your book where you got into a confrontation with somebody in prison, I believe, or on the streets, and then you saw a vision that then helped to change your life. Speak about that.
It's more or less just an idea of what I was doing was wrong. I got tired of all the trials and tribulations, all the turmoil, disappointing myself. I found out, what I basically found out spiritually was I was my worst enemy. Mm-hmm.
But you were going to hurt somebody badly before you had that happen.
Yes, I did.
Real quickly, with that story where you were going to hurt someone and then saw this vision. I think it was either on the streets or in prison, and I was reading through the book.
It was actually in the streets, and it was more of just a feeling came about where it was just, Mike, don't do this. Think about your future, think about your life. And for the first time in my life, I listened. So more or less, it was just a vision in self, something, a feeling inside that I just didn't want to do this anymore.
You served 18 months in prison, in Cheshire Prison.
Correct.
Life in prison. You write about some of the horrors. You see a lot of things, all the stereotypes in prison.
Yeah.
You saw them. We were on TV on Sunday without keeping it clean. What kind of things did you see?
Men sleeping with men, men going on dates with men, a lot of anger, a lot of disappointment, a lot of drug use. It was an entire different world than the streets. You think the streets are bad. Jail is a whole nother world.
How do you stay sane? How do you stay above the fray?
For me, it was just my spiritual, knowledge, my spiritual, just wanting to become spiritual. I repented in prison. I basically gave myself to Christ in there. I started going to jail. Started going to the church, and more or less, just growing, reading the Word of God. There are a lot of great men in there that have a lot of powerful words and powerful messages, even though they've made the same mistakes. And for some reason, they all seem to draw towards me, giving me scripture to read, and, reading the book of Job, which was the real thing that impacted my life. So more or less, it was just...
Job, the story of Job?
Job.
Okay, being blessed more in the latter part of his life than in the first part, and losing his family, losing all...
Exactly. I was sort of going through that same experience and having the faith that he had to believe in himself and to believe in God, and in the end, God revealed himself and gave him back everything that he lost.
You've got a cousin here, and Brian, who's a writer and an artist. And Brian, what compelled you about this story to put it here in this book? The book is called You Gotta Dance.
Yes.
Talking about the title, and what compelled you guys to put this and make it into a book and possibly a movie?
Well, one day Mike and I were just talking at a family event, and he just was, I'm about 10 or 11 years younger than he is, so I had no idea of a lot of the things that he went through. And when he was telling me, I said, wow, I got to write this, man, And he was, at first he was like, no. So I wrote up a synopsis after bugging him for about 3 months. I took it upon myself. I wrote up a synopsis. He read it, and he loved it. He was like, let's go.
What's the message here? And why the title, You Gotta Dance?
The title is basically, Mike has an autographed poster of Muhammad Ali over his bed. I was watching Ali with Will Smith, and...
Not with Will, Ali.
Starring Will Smith, sorry. And Jamie Foxx said something in the movie. Ali's getting pounded by George Foreman, and Jamie Foxx is in the corner, and he says, "Let him. You gotta dance."
He's playing Bundini in that
yes.
way, right?
He said, "You gotta." He said, "You gotta dance. Let him dance." That's what he does, and it just clicked to me when, I took that scenario of being up against the ropes, and often life will have you against the ropes, just pounding you with everything. Financial problems, health problems, whatever comes your way in life. And you should do like Ali. He would shuffle his feet, bob and weave. He would,
keep moving.
He would rally the crowd. Come on, and they,
right.
And just gave him confidence to come back. So basically, you got to be a fighter. Be like Ali. Just, you gotta dance.
Let's talk about those dancing and the keys. Your story, the message here, 4 keys. If you outline what you want the readers to get from this, particularly young people. Let's start with one faith. Faith.
Very important. In order to, I guess, change, there has to be a change in belief systems before there can be a change in behaviors.
How do you start? We have about 30 seconds. How do you start? How do you get faith?
Basically, redemption. You get on your knees. You have to basically become a broken man before you can be built up. So the idea in faith is to believe in something other than yourself, other than the negative things that you believed in to put you in these situations.
Education. I was reading somewhere now you're
working
very
on your important.
PhD. Did I read that right somewhere?
I'm going to be graduating my PhD in August of this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
In what? In
counseling studies.
So you hope to use that to counsel young people.
Yes, sir.
So education can also transform you along with faith. Fatherhood. You're the father of 3, I believe,
I'm
right?
a father of 3. I'm a single father raising my 8-year-old daughter. I think that is one of the most critical parts of being the change was I never had a father, never had a mentor. So being a better father, being a mentor to my children, I think is very important because it helps guide them in a direction or on a path that you don't want them to go into.
A lot of stereotypes out there with black men and fatherhood. Talk
Correct.
about that. You're very hands-on. More black men than not want to be hands-on with their kids who aren't there. Speak about that in about 30 seconds.
There's a big issue with men not supposedly being part of their kids' lives, but what the courts are actually finding out is that there's a lot of issues with the mothers not wanting the fathers to be a part of life. So it's finally good that this is being addressed because in my case with my other 2 kids, their mothers were major issues in deflecting the relationship. So
you want to be a hands-on dad.
Yes.
10 seconds. Love of self. Your final bullet.
Most important thing of all. It says in the Bible that love thy neighbor as you love thyself. If you love thyself, or if I had loved myself well enough, I would have not put myself through those particular situations. So loving yourself is key in any type of change all through life.
All right, Michael Daluz, Brian Daluz, a fascinating story, Army veteran. The book is called You Gotta Dance. Thank you guys for your time. See you again real soon. All right. When we come back, folks, we'll talk about an iconic sports owner and his influence on the Yankees and Major League Baseball, the Currents. Don Memori shares his thoughts on the boss, George Steinbrenner. You are watching The Stan Simpson Show.